And what we're going to talk about specifically today is having the wrong screen open. We're going to talk about geometric secrets of the holistic wheel, right? Now, this sounds really cool. I don't know if anyone's into like old school philosophy, but like geometry used to be like the most sacred of all maths. Like Descartes and Spinoza and all these guys knew way too much about circles and triangles, and made a lot of conclusions off there. And man, it's complex math. We won't get into all of that, but we will share some geometric secrets of the holistic wheel today. And before we do that, I just want to go over the rebel oath. Now, Lori, you might be a bit on the spot today because I didn't fill this out. I was going to have the whole group fill this out, but we're a little short-handed today. I know Jen's got the Girl Scout meeting, and Amanda is present, but we're unsure if she can really like chime in all of this. But we have the letters. I'm curious if we can piece this together. So Lori, I'll let you go first. The letter R, you know what that stands for, right? You guessed it. It stands for your mic is muted.
Sorry. Realize your potential.
Ooh, close. Potential is much later in the oath.
Yes,
Potential's in there. The R is reject extremes.
Yeah.
Amanda, you unmuted, so I'm going to let you take over the first E. Now, this one's going to be tricky. There's two of them. Will you get the one that I talk about first?
Energize yourself with healthy habits.
She read that really well. It's almost like she grabbed a piece of paper that says that.
I don't, but I bet I could find one.
Oh, okay. Lori, you want to take a stab at the B?
Oh, I can't think of the B. I know the next E is to excite ourselves about our potential, but I can't think of the B.
You've got a mastery of the potential.
Is the B the break free from common standards?
Break free from common standards, excite yourself about your potential. And then finally, my favorite one, the one that always leaves us feeling warm and fuzzy inside, the L.
Love yourself. Sorry, I'm
excited. Love yourself and
Woo!
act accordingly. Right? So that's the rebel oath. And that's the framework we use to really filter out unhealthy advice that we hear, especially on social media, but also how to really determine what is healthy for us as individuals. So announcements, we're going to have a challenge this month. It's going to be April 18th through the 24th, and it's going to be the 6x6 healthy eating challenge. Lori, I've got to do a little bit more on this I will get you an updated version of this weekend. But the challenge is, that's a 7-day period. What we're looking for is 6 days of 6 points. Amanda knows this is going to be a challenge. You're going to have to be intentional. Oh, what a shame being intentional with our lives. What a tough proposition. Anyway, what we're going to do is the 6x6 challenge. So there's 7 days. That means you do still get that loose day. You still get to mess up somewhere along and still hit your 6 days. But that week we're looking for 6 days with 6 points on nutrition. For that, you're going to have to be very intentional. You're going to have to pre-plan. You're going to have to know what you're eating ahead of time. You're going to need to make schedules, figure out when you're going to eat, figure out what you're going to eat, and then really, really focus on controlling those BLTs and loose meals and sticking to the plan that you set up. And we could talk about this a little bit more on a coaching call, but it's using the nutritional systems you guys already know. Next is the habit tracker. I updated the habit tracker yesterday. Apologies for that. That kind of slipped as I was getting all the preparations for the Holistic Festival all wrapped up, and I just kind of lost track of the calendar. But we got that updated yesterday, and the migraine didn't help on Monday either. But I am going to be deleting your habit tracker at the end of the month. We're going to be deleting that, and I'm going to be building a brand new one. I'm sorry for the inconvenience on that. It's going to be the same exact habit tracker, but the old one's set up with my Simple Success Fitness account, and I can't transfer ownership of that over to the Health Rebels stuff. And as we're transferring all the systems, I just needed an opportunity to do that, to get that set up with that email so I can adjust. And next month conveniently starts on Sunday. So it's the best time to get a new thing, because you won't have to use previous cells. Anyway, monthly reflections, another mistake I made. Calendar got away from me and I forgot to remind you guys to do the monthly reflections over the weekend. Did not get a whole lot of those in this week. So as you go through, as soon as you can, we do want to do a monthly reflection for the month of March so that we can set a game plan for April. That includes you, Amanda. I know, Amanda, last month we talked more about the be, do, have sequence, but I still want the reflections. Reflections are always, retroactive. And the next call is going to actually be Thursday, the 14th at 12 a.m. at midnight London time. For those of us still on the continental side, on the US, that will be on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific or 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will be talking about the horsemen of the health crisis. The first part, this is going to be a 2-part talk, I think, hopefully not 3. I can probably ramble for too long on this topic, but it'll be really interesting. We're going to be talking about a brief history of the 20th century and some of the changes that have occurred that have led to ultimately the health crisis that we have in the 21st century. So anyway, that's a lot of talk about the announcements. Let's talk about the talk. Let's talk about geometric secrets of the holistic wheel. And we won't actually get into the shape. We could talk about the balance and the wedges and all that. I think we've talked about that in the past. What we're going to talk about today is a lot more numerical and a lot more mathematical. And I promise I'm not going to make this a boring high school math class. That being said, this slide is a boring mathematical high school class. We're going to talk about 2 types of growth patterns. There is the first very common linear growth. That is essentially 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. It's incremental growth, but it goes in that straight line. If we were to chart it on a graph, it's just that straight line going right up, right? We've all seen this in some math class growing up. The opposite of that is going to be geometric growth, right? Sometimes called exponential growth. There's a slight nuance to the differences between exponential and geometric, but we won't get into that right now. We'll just talk geometric growth. And that is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Instead of the addition, it's multiplication. And we can see on the graph, it doesn't go this nice straight line. It gets progressively bigger over time. And I know if you look at these 2 graphs, they're not going to look very, very different or very pronounced. But if you look at the scales, if you look at the y-axis on the left side, you can see the linear only goes to 15, where the geometric goes all the way up to 150. So if we look at these actually overlapping in together, if we look at them directly, we can see there is a very significant difference with the blue geometric line versus the red linear line. Over time, that difference just continues to grow. Now, why am I doing boring math classes? Well, this originally came by because I started a new business mastery course from a gentleman named Jay Abraham, who Forbes magazine has rated as one of the top 3 business consultants. I am not doing personal one-on-one stuff with him. I would not be able to afford that, but I did get into some like random lucky backdoor offering. And he shares his ideas about geometric growth in business, saying that there are only 3 ways to grow a business, right? And don't worry, we're not giving you an MBA today. And you don't have to be a business owner to learn from this, but this is the idea, the concept that got me thinking about the holistic wheel. So there's 3 ways to grow a business, right? You can increase customers, you can increase how much customers spend when they buy stuff, or you can increase how often customers buy and spend money, right? Those are 3 ways to grow a business, and they're the only 3 ways to grow a business. If you come up with some other idea, you will win a Nobel Prize in economics, because so far, mathematically, everything falls into one of these three categories. So doing some random ABC model of like ABC company, if company ABC has 10 customers at $10 a purchase, 10 times a year, what that is 10 times 10 times 10, that's $1,000. That company is worth $1,000. Woo! Now, typically when businesses try to increase the amount of revenue they get, they often just try to double their customer base, right? And so instead of 10 customers, you're trying to get 20 customers at $10, 10 times a year. And that's 2,000. It's 100% increase. It doubles your money. That's awesome. The biggest challenge here is that doubling customers is oftentimes not easy. It's not feasible. It's not possible. It often comes and stresses your overhead expenses. It bloats your marketing budget. You get really bad returns, blah, 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 blah. Trying to get 100% increase in one category, it's just not really feasible. And doubling customers is only one lever that you can pull. With geometric growth, instead of doubling that one category, he looks at what does a 33% increase across the board do, right? So instead of trying to double and get 20 times 10 times 10, what if you get 13.3 times 13.3 times 13.3, right? Now, without crunching the numbers, Lori, any guess what happens when you do a 33% increase instead of 100% in one category? I'll give you a hint. It's not super amazing. So don't go crazy with your guess.
Right. Yeah, it just seems like it's not gonna nearly be as productive.
Okay, not nearly as
result-
productive as doubling a category. So 33% increase should be a
Yeah.
lot less than 100% increase, right? Well, it actually gets to
Right.
be $2,352.67, which is a 230, oh, sorry, I miswrote that. That should be 135% increase. That's 135% increase over the 10 by 10 by 10, right? Which is, you know, when we talk about that 33% increase in three categories, gives you a 35% increase more than 100% in one category, right? You can pull that lever to try to double your customers, but you're still going to get less return than if you got a smaller effort in more areas, right? So when we talk about real world applications, 33% increase is much, much easier and much, much more possible than trying to get 100% increase. And it gets results long term, and it gets better results long term. Now we have an advantage over this, right? We have an advantage. Jay Abraham deals with businesses which only have 3 levers of growth. We are dealing with our health, which with the holistic wheel, we discovered has 6 levers for growth, right? There are 6 ways to grow your health profits with the holistic wheel, right? And if we look back at this graph, right, the linear versus geometric, you can see when there's 3 factors, the geometric has an advantage, right? We saw that it was a 33% increase. It's just you have an increase, you have a advantage. But that gap at 6 factors, that advantage is so much more profound. So let's look at what that gap does for us. And we'll do some math. Don't worry, I already did the math. You can put your calculator away. I know Amanda's got her video off so she doesn't look too frantic over her calculator. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you. Right? So just arbitrary numbers. These 10s don't mean anything. They're just easy to work with for demonstration purposes. But if you had a 10 in all 6 categories, whatever that means, whether that's 10% or whether that's 10 out of 10, right? You get a total score of 1 million. Completely arbitrary number. But hey man, let's do it. Everybody always wants to double up their activity, right? So I'm going to get twice as good at exercise. I'm going to work twice as hard, right? Let's do that. What happens if it's 20 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, right? If you do that, right, we've got mindset stays at 10, activity goes up to 20, doubles, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and support all stay at 10. It gets you to a total of 2 million. That's 100% increase. If you double your activity, you're going to double your results. That's awesome. Woo! Right? And that makes sense. That's what everyone expects. And that's what the reality is. But what if we don't do 100% increase, right? What if we only did a 10% increase across the board? Now, Lori, you're going to probably be a little bit closer with this guess this time around, so I won't tease you on this since you've got an advantage now, right? So what if we go 11 times 11 times 11? Well, that ends up being 1,771,561, which is a 77% increase, right? Not as good as doubling. 10% is not as good as doubling. Surprise. But 77% versus 100, you're getting most of that with almost no increased effort, right? Now, because I wanted to know what the actual number is, because that's a small gap between 77 and 100. Like, Amanda, if you're able to unmute and speak, what do you think is the number that actually makes it even, right? What's the percentage increase across the board that gives you 100% increase?
Maybe like 12.5.
Whew. It's actually 12.2.
Cool.
12.2% will get you like 105% increase, right? So it's not really that much more over 10%. So really, when we can say that you have two options to double your results. You can double up on your activity. You could also double up on your nutrition or double up on sleep, or you can do a 10 to 12% increase, right? And let's talk about what that looks like in real life, right? If we're trying to get a 10% increase in activity, let's talk about steps, right? That non-exercise physical activity. Most people average about 4,000 steps a day, right? I would love to see that at 7,000, but most people average about 4,000. And if we try to get a 10% increase on that, that's super easy math. Lori, shout out, what's 10% of 4,000?
400.
400 more steps each day. To get 400 more steps, that's a 5-minute walk. That's a 5-minute walk. Does anyone think that it's impossible to find 5 minutes somewhere to get a little bit more 5-minute walk in? Right? Seems really reasonable. Now, on the flip side, if we were to try to double that, if you're at 4,000 and we're like, hey, you got to get 8,000 steps, we got to double up, baby. Let's go. That's about 45 to 50 minutes. Ballpark, if you get a little tired, it's an hour. Like, you can find an hour to go for a walk. It's possible. But if you're trying to make that shift, how long, how often, how successful are you going to be forcing that extra hour every time? It's possible. You'll find them here and there, but your chance of long-term success, maybe not that reasonable to try to add an extra hour all of a sudden. Right? So that 100% versus 10%, we can see the difference in how accessible, how achievable that actually is. But let's do some other mathematical applications with it. So it's not just 10% across the board. What if you didn't increase everything? What if you only increased a couple things, right? We're talking about the monthly reflections. What if you just had a really bad nutrition month? You fell off the wagon, and now you have an area where you can get 30% better on nutrition. And maybe you didn't sleep well, so you can increase your sleep by 40%, but everything else you just kind of maintain, right? What that does by the numbers is that gives us an 82% increase. If we just increase 2 levers, right? Obviously a little different, 30 and 40%, but just increasing 2 components changes the total by 82% versus, trying to do the original. And that's nice. Being able to just do 1 or 2 things and get a good result from it, right? That's no change in mindset, activity, stress, or support, but it is a slightly bigger change in nutrition and sleep. What about the other way? What if we get 10% worse across the board, right? Now, we can look at this and we can go from 10s to 9s, and that gives us a 47% decrease, a 47% loss. That does suck, but we can hold off on that, right? What if it's not across the board? What if it's only in 5 out of 6? What if one area stays pretty good, right? Then it's only a 40% loss. Instead of 47% loss, it becomes a 40. So if you can maintain one category, you insulate. What if you maintain 2 categories, right? Then it's only a 34% loss. Now, how often do we see people often just completely fall off the wagon and month after month get that 47% loss because they're not taking care of any of the things, right? We've seen our friends, we've seen our coworkers fall into this trap. What if we could help them just maintain 1 or 2 levers and slow down the decline? That way you don't have to get all this new momentum up, right? It can insulate us from the fall off, right? The holistic wheel gives us a safety net. So all in all, the geometric secrets behind the holistic wheel gives us 3 really big benefits. The first one is that we have explosive result potential with significantly less effort. 12% across the board doubles everything, right? It also gives us multiple levers for improvement, right? Maybe we don't have to pull everything all the time, but it gives us options where we can always move forward or get something a little bit better, right? And then, as we saw with the last couple of examples, it gives us a safety net against dramatic fall-offs. Just by pulling 1 or 2 levers, we can slow down when life is overwhelming. We don't have to completely descend into madness. There's something that we can pull all the time. So that brings me to the weekly discussion, talking about things we can pull. I'm curious, with you two here today, what is just a 10% increase somewhere along the holistic wheel that you can do? And so we just got 2 people in today. So it's going to be Lori and Amanda. So whoever wants to take it first, go ahead and shout out. Just look, obviously after this talk, I'm not looking for doubling your exercise. I'm not looking for you to suddenly become a perfect nutritionist, right? What's a 10% increase you can do somewhere along that wheel?
I think, yeah, go on, Amanda.
Oh, sorry. I think, well, my mind immediately goes to nutrition and activity. First of all, great presentation, great information. This is eye-opening and motivating for me because I feel like I can definitely increase 10% in nutrition with a little more effort and activity with a little more effort. And it doesn't feel as overwhelming as being like, okay, I need to get my cardio back from 30 minutes up to 60 minutes kind of deal.
10% over 30 minutes is what, 33? Like that's almost like, that's like borderline accidental, right? That's like, right. I meant to do 30 minutes, I accidentally did 33.
And it's,
I think we lost Amanda. We might have lost Amanda.
Section to see how it can build up over time.
Amanda, I got to be honest, we lost it for a minute. I don't know what you said.
Oh, sorry. I just made a comment about, I also like the fact that you kind of explained how even if you're just losing a little bit of effort in different areas, you're having a significant decline over time in the areas of the wheel. You wouldn't think that like giving up a little would make such a big difference, but it does.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, in the same vein, it's gonna happen at some point. We all fall into that scenario, knowing that we also have that defense mechanism where I don't need to let everything go. If I can just pull one small thing, I can get that 7 to 20% return, right? I can save myself that. I think that's really encouraging and really motivating as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully math has never been more fun.
Right? I'm like, math.
I need to figure out how to package this conversation a little bit more to make it more presentable in an audio platform. But I always try to convince people that it should be easy and natural to be healthy and well. And I think this really kind of demonstrates that, if you just do just 10%, it's not asking a lot, but if you just kind of do these things intentionally, they can have dramatic cumulative effects.
Yes, very well said. Because I was thinking about that too, is how great it would be to give this presentation to some other people, but they'd have to have a background of the holistic wheel and an understanding of that initially. Maybe.
Well, this is one of those, because there's a few people on it, if you're both comfortable with it, I could share this video more publicly.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then Lori, what about you? What's something 10% you can do to just get a little bit of momentum and increase there?
I mean, I think absolutely with the activity, the example you gave about walking, that's absolutely doable. I can just, when I'm ready to kind of wrap it up, it's like, you know what, let me make one more lap, and I can do that. It's like, it's just adds on another, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And, obviously the payoff is, exponential. So it's worth it. So, yeah, and I mean, I'd love to do something with the nutrition to try to come up with something there. I really think that's doable too. It's more palatable, kind of. I'm using lots of food metaphors here, but in kind of.
That's all right. It's food metaphors are just tastier, right?
They're not as good as baseball. They're the best. But yes, they're tastier. But yeah, I can just, in little increments, take little bites of it's doable to come up with some nutrition that's like, what, maybe I don't, let me just knock down those portion sizes just a little bit, and just something. I think that could be, sometimes I can be very guilty of overindulging in portion size. So, I do hear your words. So I think that's something I could be cognizant of.
Yeah. Yeah. I always feel guilty at how easy I believe health and fitness should be. And I think this model kind of shows why I felt it was so easy. I never did the numbers like this before until the Jay Abraham course, but it was seeing the impact of just doing a little bit across the boards, how dramatically that improves things. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of consistently trying to get 100% increase in a category. Some people try to get a 200% increase. Sometimes people go from having like the worst eating plans to me, I'm going to be the most obsessive eater. And it's just, you're not going to win on that one. And so we set these really, really unreasonable standards. But if we just get 10%, man, I might become like a 10% evangelist after this. This is.
Yeah, I feel like anybody would say they could do 10%.
Right.
And I'm curious to like do the math when I do my monthly review, because there were a few weeks in March when I did not do grocery shopping, did not do meal planning on Saturday. And then weeks when I did with the family, and I know I had better days just by default because I didn't have any other options.
Mhm.
And so I bet that just having a grocery plan was more than a 10% increase. So I'm kind
Yeah.
of curious to do the math on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would do the math on that. That's seems like, how do you quantify grocery shopping, right? But that's, I mean, that's such a small change to just to have that menu, that grocery list made up, and to do that grocery shopping intentionally. That's such a small little change that we've seen the dramatic improvement that makes, right?
Yeah. Could I do the math like 1 week, add up my nutrition points is 35 out of 42 or whatever, get the
Yeah.
percentage, and then the next week do one and compare the percentages? Would that give me an accurate enough difference, I guess?
Sure, it'd be interesting. I haven't crunched those numbers before, so I don't know. But it could be really interesting to just kind of see.
Just motivating for
Yeah,
myself
yeah,
to know how
right.
much better I can do by just making a
Absolutely.
list.
Yeah, I'd be really curious. Let me know what you find on that too.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, that's gonna wrap up the discussion. Oh, I didn't share my 10%. I should probably share my 10%. My big 10% is, if I just stop buying candy, I think my nutrition will improve dramatically, right? I'm not against candy, obviously, that's why I buy it. Uh, but I find when I buy candy for the week, I run out on Monday. And so I buy more candy. So if I just don't buy candy and wait for like special events, where like in those moments, I can buy smaller bits of candy, one-offs, and just have it less often. Yeah, that's probably my Achilles heel these days. Or what I've been doing very recently successfully is listening to my go to bed alarm better. Uh, by not being on my phone at 8 p.m. when my go to bed alarm goes off, I tend to do a better job at wrapping up and getting the dog out for her last bathroom break and then getting to bed at the right time. That's a small little thing, but it's dramatic. It's increased the average amount of sleep I get each night by an hour, because I go to bed at the right time. But it's just a little thing, right? Just listening to the alarm instead of turning it off angrily and ignoring it. That helps. It's just one small change, right? Just a 10% change, and it gets a dramatic improvement. I've been feeling really energetic and hyper and weird. And I think that's, benefits of being rested.
That's great. I was going to say, this is recorded, right? I'm going to show that to my husband. Go to bed alarm at work.
Yeah. It only works if you listen to it. I will admit, if I'm scrolling on my phone at 8 o'clock and the phone alarm goes off, I will just push it off to the side and ignore it. But if I'm like reading a book or something more casual, something that's easy to quit, when that alarm goes off, then I listen to it. So maybe that's a two-part question. Maybe the real change is just changing what I do before the alarm goes off.
That's a good point. I lost you for half a minute, but I got some good stuff.
You're good. Awesome. So this is going to bring us to the part in the call that is the open floor Q&A. If you have any questions regarding health and wellness, feel free to chime in, shoot them out, or, new episode of Moon Knight comes out tonight. If you got any questions about Marvel stuff, I'm also the guy. All right, guys. Well, I am going to wrap that up and get what people would consider the most disgusting dinner ready. But it's my favorite, so I'm excited. We got good food planned tonight.
Ooh, what is it?
So I'm gonna make some chicken hearts. Serve it with a side of rice and throw some mushrooms on top. And what are my vegetables? Ooh, I'm doing sauteed zucchini tonight as well. But I know, like, chicken hearts are like my favorite cut of meat. And I know that sounds weird and people always get grossed out and weirded out. And my sister thinks it's disgusting, but I don't know, man. It's got the best taste.
Do me a favor and watch the movie Flesh on Netflix. It doesn't have anything to do with chicken hearts, but just reminded me of it.
Now, I imagine that's probably something about animal rights.
No, it's actually a movie I thought was going to be more a comedy, and it was like a horror, which you can't stop watching.
Okay.
Piques your interest? Watch it tonight.
So it's not related to nutrition?
No, I don't want to
okay.
ruin like the whole premise of it. So you'll see what
I
I
always
mean.
get really concerned about Netflix and nutrition. People have this belief that documentaries is a journalistic standard, and it's just like a cinematic style. Usually has some good information and they do present some stuff, but the Netflix nutrition documentaries are definitely heavy-handed and grossly biased, and oftentimes pretty refutable. But that doesn't stop them from producing and doesn't stop me from dying a little bit every month. Yeah. If someone gets really passionate about nutrition, they're probably not being objective anymore. I get really passionate about nutrition, but I get passionate about the flavor of it. And vegetables. I do have a bias. I do think people should like double up the amount of vegetables they probably eat, just compared to the average person. But I kind of evangelize that. Eat more vegetables, people. Eat more vegetables, Amanda.
All right.
But I don't feel like that's there's certain crowds that think that like vegetables are vastly superior. I just think they're the richest source of just a bunch of micronutrients that your body's going to like. So eat more of them, get more nutrients, feel better. Unless you're the Liver King, who is a crazy Yahoo on the internet, and God, they're not necessarily wrong that liver and organ meats have a lot of vitamin content, but just eat your vegetables, people. For once in your life, listen to your
I'm all
mom.
for that.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to wrap it up. And we'll get this going. Next week, we're going to be talking about the horsemen of the health crisis. That should be really fun. I've hinted at this stuff before. We've talked a little bit. There will be some names that are the same, but we'll go a little bit more in depth and share a couple newbies. All right, should be fun. Get ready for history and sociology next week. I'm taking you guys to school. This week was math class. Next week's history. I don't know. Some point I'll have to take you guys back to science and get into like the microbiology again. But yeah, you would think that the trainer would just do gym class, but we're going to mathematics. All right. Crazy jokes aside, I'm gonna go wrap this up and see y'all next week. See what happens when you get more sleep. You just get to go on tyrants. Bye, everyone.
Okay.